Walk through a typical American grocery cart, and here's the quiet headline. More than half of the calories in the average U.S. adult diet now come from something researchers call ultra-processed food. Not junk food as a vibe. A specific category, built in factories, designed to be cheap, convenient, and very easy to eat. So, what does that kind of food actually do inside your body, beyond the label on the front of the box? Hey, welcome to Evidence Health USA, where we follow the studies, not the panic posts. Today we'll decode the NOVA classification, how scientists separate ultra-processed foods from everything else, walk through the most famous human feeding experiment on this topic, and explain why the huge population studies are important, but not the same thing as proof. Quick disclaimer, this is education, not personalized medical advice. If you have diabetes, heart disease, and eating disorder, or you're making major diet changes while on medication, talk with your clinician first. Most nutrition labels tell you calories, fat, and sugar. They don't tell you how a food was built. That's where, NOVA comes in. It's not an acronym, it's a classification system developed by Brazilian epidemiologist Carlos Monteiro and colleagues. It sorts everything you eat into 4 groups based on processing, not based on carbs versus keto versus vegan. Group 1. Unprocessed or minimally processed foods. Think apples, eggs, plain oats, frozen vegetables, fresh meat. Group 2. Processed culinary ingredients. Oils, butter, sugar, salt. Group 3. Processed foods, usually Group 1 foods plus Group 2 ingredients. Canned beans with salt. Simple cheese. Fresh bread with flour, water, yeast, salt. Group 4. Ultra-processed foods. Industrial formulations. Made mostly from extracted or refined ingredients. Fats, starches, added sugars, protein isolates, plus additives you rarely use at home. Emulsifiers, flavors, colors, sweeteners, thickeners. Often ready to eat or heat and eat. Often hyper-convenient and hyper-palatable. A practical rule from Monteiro's team. Scan the ingredient list. If you see high fructose corn syrup, hydrogenated oils, hydrolyzed proteins, maltodextrin, or a string of emulsifiers and natural flavors, you're usually in Group 4 territory. Important nuance. Ultra-processed foods are still food. They provide energy and nutrients. The debate is what habitual patterns do to intake and health, not whether they magically stop being food. National Health and Nutrition Examination Survey data, NHANES, coded with NOVA show the shift. Jewell and colleagues tracked U.S. adults from 2001 through 2018. Adjusted ultra-processed share of daily calories rose from about 53.5% to 57%. Minimally processed foods fell from about 33% to 27%. So when people say the modern food environment pushes passive overeating, they're not speaking metaphorically. Most of us are living inside that environment every day. Population studies can show association. They cannot, by themselves, prove that processing alone causes weight gain. For that, you want, controlled feeding. And the landmark trial here comes from Kevin Hall's group at the National Institutes of Health, published in Cell Metabolism in 2019. 20 weight-stable adults, average age about 31, BMI about 27, lived at the NIH Clinical Center. Each person spent 2 weeks on an ultra-processed menu, then 2 weeks on an unprocessed menu, or the reverse. They could eat as much or as little as they wanted. Here's the twist that makes this study famous. The teams matched the diets on paper. Presented calories, macronutrients, sugar, sodium, and fiber were designed to align. The main difference was processing level. Soft chicken nuggets versus grilled chicken breast. Sugary flavored yogurt versus plain yogurt with fruit, etc. Results. On the ultra-processed diet, people ate about 508 extra calories per day. They gained about 0.9 kilograms, roughly 2 pounds, in 2 weeks. On the unprocessed diet, they ate less and lost about the same amount. The extra intake came mostly from carbohydrate and fat. Protein barely moved, which fits an idea researchers call the protein leverage hypothesis. When foods are dilute in protein, people may keep eating to chase protein, overshooting calories. That is strong evidence that, in this setting, ultra-processed meals drove higher energy intake and short-term weight change, even when the menus looked nutritionally similar on a spreadsheet. Limitations matter. 20 people, 2 weeks, inpatient, free food, not your real grocery budget or stress level. One trial is not the entire universe. but it is the best human experimental evidence we have on the intake side. Why eat 500 more calories if the food wasn't rated more pleasant? Hall's team measured that. Visual analog scales for pleasantness and familiarity did not significantly differ between diets. Hunger and fullness scores, adjusted for intake, didn't explain it either. What did differ? Eating rate. Meals on the ultra-processed diet were eaten faster, about 17 calories per minute versus a slower pace on the unprocessed side. Softer foods, less chewing, quicker bites, more calories before fullness signals catch up. Also, while presented meals matched energy density overall, the solid ultra-processed foods people actually consumed had higher energy density than the unprocessed solids, partly because beverages in the ultra-processed arm carried fiber supplements. Drinks don't fill you up the same way solid food does. So inside your body, the early story looks less like mystery toxins and more like physics and timing. Easier to eat fast, easier to eat dense, easier to overshoot before you notice. Researchers are still studying additives, gut signaling, and reward pathways. Those may matter. They are not yet proven as the main driver compared with calories and eating behavior in humans. Now, zoom out to millions of people followed for years. A 2024 umbrella review in the BMJ by Lane and colleagues screened meta-analyses covering nearly 10 million participants. Greater ultra-processed exposure was directly associated with 32 of 45 health outcomes studied: mortality, cardiovascular disease, type 2 diabetes, obesity, common mental health measures, and others. Effect sizes are often modest but directionally consistent. Example: highest versus lowest intake linked to about 15 to 21% higher all-cause mortality in several pooled estimates. Association, not proof that processing alone killed people. An updated 2025 meta-analysis of 18 prospective cohorts, more than 1.1 million people, found similar mortality signals, about 15% higher risk comparing highest to lowest ultra-processed intake, and about 10% higher risk for each 10% increase in ultra-processed share. Why the caution language? These studies depend on food questionnaires people misremember. Ultra-processed eaters often differ in smoking, income, sleep, and overall diet quality. NOVA coding of mixed dishes varies. The BMJ umbrella review graded much of the evidence low or very low by grade standards. So, a consistent pattern worth taking seriously, but not a courtroom verdict that each additive is guilty. Association is not causation. The Hall trial suggests one plausible causal pathway: passive overeating. Cohort studies add breadth. Neither alone tells the whole life story. Critics point out gray zones. Some whole grain breads land as ultra-processed. Some plain yogurts don't. Plant milks, protein bars, diet sodas, debates continue. NOVA is a flashlight, not a religion. It highlights industrial formulations that tend to cluster low fiber, high sodium, and easy overconsumption. It doesn't replace reading nutrients or your own tolerance. The World Health Organization and other bodies are working on operational definitions for policy. The U.S. dietary guidelines emphasize food groups and nutrients, not the word ultra-processed on labels yet. Many standard healthy eating patterns still push vegetables, beans, whole grains, and less added sugar, which naturally cuts ultra-processed share without needing perfection. You do not need to purge your pantry on camera for this video to count. So, 3 evidence-aligned moves. 1. Shift the base of your plate toward Group 1 and 3 foods: vegetables, fruit, beans, lentils, eggs, fish, poultry, nuts, plain yogurt, whole grains you cook. 2. Treat Group 4 as frequency food, not forbidden poison. Sweet drinks, packaged snacks, instant noodles, many frozen dinners. Fine occasionally. Problematic as the default background. 3. Use environment tricks the trial supports. Keep slower, chewier options visible. Pre-portioned snack foods. Add protein and fiber to meals so you're not chasing protein through calorie-dense carbs and fats. If you have cardiometabolic conditions, pregnancy, or a history of disordered eating, personalize this with a dietitian, not, a YouTube comment thread. We are not saying ultra-processed food isn't food. We are not saying one NIH trial proves decades-long disease outcomes for everyone. We are not saying every emulsifier is toxic. Human proof isn't there at population scale. We are saying, in a matched feeding experiment, processing level changed how much people ate and how fast they gained weight. In real life, most Americans get most calories from this category, and large observational studies link heavy intake with worse health markers, with important caveats. 3 takeaways. 1. Ultra-processed means industrially built, additive-rich formulations in Nova Group 4, not just bad junk. 2. Kevin Hall's NIH trial is the clearest human evidence that ultra-processed diets can drive extra calories and short-term weight gain through faster eating in energy-dense patterns, even when macros look matched. 3. Bigger population studies reinforce concern, but they show association. Upgrade your defaults gradually. Don't outsource guilt to an ingredient witch hunt. If this helped, subscribe. We publish evidence-led health breakdowns every week. Comment: what ultra-processed food is hardest for you to swap? Sweet drinks, packaged snacks, or frozen meals? That tells us what to cover next. Thanks for watching with a critical eye. Your body isn't a chemistry set, but what you eat daily absolutely writes the first draft.